Thank you.
Good morning. This is the Board of Selectmen for the town of Tuftonboro, Monday, January 22nd. Please stand and honor America with I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, everyone throughout New England is happy today. If you're a football fan.
Right, stressed out, but
It's a fairly normal game. Yeah, I mean, oh, come on.
It's always
They're
that way
often,
with
they're
cats.
often down a couple touchdowns at
Fourth
halftime.
quarter.
It's not a,
They needed some good January weather to make it interesting.
yeah, not a big yank.
First item of business is public hearing. This is a notice for public hearing to accept donation pursuant to RSA 31:95-B, Roman 3-sub-A. The Selectmen will hold a public hearing at 9 a.m. on January 22nd, 2018 at the town office at 240 Middle Road to accept a charitable donation for the establishment of a cemetery expendable trust fund in which this donation will be placed and other future donations may be added. Both the principal and the interest in this expendable trust could be expended for cemetery purposes, including but not limited to establishment, management, care, and maintenance of cemeteries in Tuftonboro, meaning all things that would be covered under normal annual cemetery expenses of the town, as well as for special projects such as construction and reconstruction of walls and fencing, planting and removal of trees and shrubs, erection and replacement of monuments. Said trust fund shall be held in the custody of the trustee of the trust funds and shall be transferred only in response to vouchers executed by the cemetery trustees. Any comment from the board?
This is on the Lewis, which cemetery is this? It's money specific, the Hall Cemetery?
all cemeteries.
Oh, I thought it was specific to one cemetery, I'm sorry.
This is to establish a trust fund that's expendable so that we can accept private donations for work on cemeteries. Any
Okay, so
cemetery.
this isn't the acceptance of funds, this is the establishment of a trust.
Both, because we've got the money, we've got a donation of $50,000 for this purpose. Whatever we want to use it for.
Okay, that's where I was confused. I thought it was for a specific cemetery. so I
No, we're
apologize.
planning to use it on the French cemetery to start with. Hopefully we can get more than just the French cemetery done, but,
Okay.
so it's, we already have a cemetery expendable trust fund that we established a year ago or 2 years ago. But that's for public money. That's for when you buy a plot out here. The money for the right to burial
Mhm.
goes into that fund. That's considered public money. You can't commingle public and private. So this is to set up a private fund that will accept private money.
And will also then be a vehicle for anybody who wants to donate money for cemetery
Yes.
maintenance or
Or a specific project.
or repair, yeah.
Now, I think you might want to have a warrant article that authorizes you to accept in excess of $10,000 for this indefinitely, so you don't have to have a hearing every time. Because we're gonna have lots of donors. Just kidding, but when you get a project that's more than 10,000 a donation, you're supposed to have a public hearing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that, you may know more about it than I do, that provision in the RSA can be blanketed with an action at town meeting. Well, with the $10,000 threshold in the public hearing, but
I think it can, but
it certainly warrants investigation, yeah.
Go ahead.
So there are three trusts there's the trust that you've set up for establishing the right to burial.
Yeah.
There's this new trust that we're gonna establish, presumably. And then there's the perpetual care trust. And
Right. Which we're,
and there's no standard fee on the perpetual care. We were talking earlier.
we're not
about this.
doing perpetual care fees anymore.
Okay.
Because once you have a perpetual care fund, it never goes away. You have to do bookkeeping on it forever. You can't lump it with any other
What they call it
funds.
perpetual, isn't it?
It's perpetual. And it's hard to track. You know, the rules change, and those old funds that we had, there's not a lot of detail on them to specify what they were for. Or
Yeah,
you-
I guess it's a management question that you'll answer
So-
sometime about if you've got money in the account for this new trust for repair and upkeep or whatever, how does that marry with perpetual care?
Okay. Well, the perpetual care funds are there, and we
Right.
manage them, and
I'm thinking of the expense.
we use the income from that to reimburse the town for maintenance expense,
Okay.
in accordance with which cemetery the money was left for. It's something that the trustees of the cemetery and the trust funds work out together. The expendable public fund that we established last year, the right to burial money goes into that. We used to have, when you bought a plot out here, you would get a deed for the plot, you would actually own the land, and you would also you'd pay a fee for that, you'd pay a fee for perpetual care. And the fee you spend to buy it would go in the general fund. The perpetual care money would go into a trust fund. We've changed that, so now it's, you buy a right to burial for one lump sum. Maintenance is included, it's not perpetual care.
Mhm.
And that right to burial money goes in the cemetery expendable fund that we established a year ago.
So it doesn't come into the general fund at all?
It doesn't go into the general fund, but it can only be used for cemetery maintenance of the cemetery out here.
And all of this is come about as a result of changes to the RSAs over the years.
Can I make a comment?
You may.
Peter Slusky, I'm treasurer of the trustees of the trust funds. The reason all this changed was because a lawsuit was brought against the state several years ago, probably more like a decade ago. And the lawsuit complained about the fact that people were putting money in perpetual care to take care of their particular plot in a particular cemetery in a particular town. And the general conduct of the trustees in most towns was to take all the income from all these perpetual care funds and donate it back to the town to offset the cost of maintenance in the whole cemetery. So the gist of the lawsuit was, how can you take my perpetual care money that I donated, that I put into this fund for this particular plot, and you're actually using some of that money to take care of their plot, 3 rows down and 4 rows over, because it's all going into, back into the, town. So the complaint was, you cannot use the income from perpetual care money for a particular plot on anybody else's plot. This led to an unbelievable change in how trustees handle this money in the state of New Hampshire. So how do you get around this? One way is the state has mandated all the trustees to come up with a formula that says this is how much money it costs to mow that particular plot, to cut the grass, to do whatever maintenance is, and that's the only money that the town can get back from the trustees' investments to offset it. You can't use money, if this guy donated $2,000 and they donated $100 into their funds, you can't use the income from that $2,000 to pay for this one, or vice versa. So that led us to, we have to come up with a formula, and that's what the trustees and the cemeteries have been working on. But how they got around this was, the state allowed the trustees to create a different fund, as long as that's what that RSA was all about, creating the private, the public money that goes from the sale of burial, okay, to go into a separate fund, and from there you can reimburse the town, because it's town employees that do the maintenance, for the maintenance of the entire cemetery. In other words, it's not going to a particular plot of land.
This is all moving forward. What happens to all the people that
The
bought a
money-
lot 50 years ago?
Here's what happened, we worked out the formula, we're 98% there, of getting that formula for each and every perpetual care account. And some of those accounts will get bigger and bigger and bigger because we can't take
You just
all of
sit
that
there.
money.
Yeah.
But we could use it on repairing their stones, their gravestones, their markers.
I guess that was my question, is that money can be used for,
Something
for-
specific to those.
to that plot, so if the stone's broken and needs to be repaired,
You could use that particular
right.
amount of money. yes.
Presumably, if there's a specific tree that's right on that plot that needs to be cut down, you could pull money out of that.
But we're talking, most of these accounts is maybe $1, $1.25 a year these days that you
So-
get.
so it's not-
It's just a horrendous.
Yeah.
So the
this is all
town,
getting computerized, hopefully?
yeah, well, it's on
I mean,
a,
so we've got
Not in
some
a
sort of
spreadsheet, yes.
yeah.
so,
Now, push into this mess, the abandonment issue. How does, well, you say that
abandonment,
now.
we have.
We're gonna take over the responsibility of maintaining that graveyard. The town is.
We've already done that, basically.
Well, we're going through the process in a couple of
No, but
places.
we've been doing it without the legal process
Okay.
in place.
But where does the money come for doing that? And does it muddy the waters as far as your trust funds are concerned?
The money comes from the cemetery budget.
So it's an
Every year.
annual budget?
It's an annual budget
Okay.
item.
It's not coming out of any trust funds for,
No,
Okay.
no, and it's the,
and so whatever money you give us just hits the revenue side of the budget, that's,
right,
okay.
right. So these two expendable funds will give us the money to do extra work on the older cemeteries.
Right.
There's a lot of them that need to have trees removed, which is a tough project, because you've got to deal with
It's
landowners.
I'm surprised, did this go to court? Is that what happened with these people that didn't want to?
Yeah, it went to,
And they prevailed?
they prevail, the state
Because
actually,
we're currently fixing roads over by my house on Ledge Hill Road with money that was paid in taxes by people down on Tufton Neck. I mean, I'm,
it prevailed. I don't have in front of me the,
it
you know,
just seems odd.
yeah, it does seem, believe me, seemed very odd for a very long time now.
Yeah.
Going, well, this is craziness, but because they proved their point that the perpetual care money was unique for, it went to a particular plot of land, or a plot of, burial. So they ruled in their favor, and they just came down with that ruling to all the trustees that you can't use this money to pay for this. So that led to the question, well, how do we know, how do we come up, well, that's what you have to work out. You have to find out.
That's why you get paid the big money.
Yes, it's,
And believe me, we're not alone in this conundrum. I mean, all the other towns and cities in the state are just, I mean, they're settling on trying to create new rules and regulations to go along with the finding of this particular court case, to coincide with the law and make it work. So that's why we asked the town to create taking the money for the right of burial and putting it into a trust fund, expendable trust fund, instead of dividing it up and putting part into a perpetual care in part that went straight to the town as just a revenue item. So,
So we're not asking for perpetual care money.
Correct.
Anything else from the public?
Now that they're totally confused.
We'll let it put them to sleep early. when they
Well,
watch
I
this.
do have a question. So with your new trust, it allows you to accept private donations, so you're not commingling public and private.
Right.
So how do you, but it is expendable.
Yes.
Okay, it also is expendable based on you're looking at what's available and.
Cemetery trustees decide what they want to do, what
I
they
mean,
need to do.
Sounds like you need an Excel sheet for every single
Yeah.
plot and
Yeah.
every single cemetery.
We do. We have that. Well, we have it for all the perpetual care funds,
But-
sort of.
Yeah, but even in assessing, that's,
And there's checks and balances, because the trustees have to agree to the payment that you demanded. So it isn't like you've got an
Right.
open checkbook that you can just,
The cemetery trustees decide what they want to use. The trustees of the trust funds then have to,
you all prioritize and they,
well, they tell us if it's legal for us to do it or not.
yeah, we analyze every item to make sure it corresponds with the parameters of how the trust was set up. If it goes beyond those parameters, don't do it. We just don't do it. And if it falls within the parameters of how the trust was created, and what the money is supposed to be delegated for, we go ahead and issue money to whoever has requested it for those reasons.
And certainly the benefit to having two separate funds, one out of tax money and one from private donations, is even if they can be spent for the same types of activities, you have a paper trail all the way to when the money's spent, that you can, that there isn't any confusion about, where the money came from.
Right.
Anything else? Is the board prepared to make a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting this donation, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
And creating the expendable funds,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, nice job. Next is public input. Anybody wish to speak? Okay. We'll move along to our first appointment. Chief Thompson, Fire Department. I see him out there in the outer halls. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Chief.
Right. You see that there's a last year's numbers and beginning of this year's numbers. Ending for 2017, we had 233 fire calls, 289 EMS calls, 59 service calls, and 28 special details for a total of 609. Gas furnace inspections were 36, oil burner inspections 10, wood stove inspections 4, life safety 19 for a total of 69. 2018, we've had 20 fire calls, 11 EMS calls, 0 service and 0 special details for 31. Gas furnace inspections 3, oil burner inspections 1, wood and pellet stove inspections 2 for a total of 6. The department heard from the third person, Robert McKenna, on the department. As of 1/12/18, he has retired from the department on that date. We wish him well. He had been with the department since 7/31 of 2002. The department has had a successful joint airboat training with New Hampshire Fish and Game, Maine Warren Service, West Ossipee Fire Rescue, and Alton Fire Rescue Department. We had hoped to get out and actually do the physical part as far as the actual training out on the lake. Everything was inside. We had all the 3 boats that are currently in the state in service in the fire station so that everyone could look and see what the other departments had, how the units worked and things like that. But because of the minus 12-degree temperatures outside with the wind, we didn't think it was going to be prudent to actually finish the rest of the training in the afternoon. That has been rescheduled. Alton Fire Rescue took part in the training because they had an airboat donated to their department, which they are in the process of getting ideas to get their airboat and their program up and running for that. We also have a joint training with New Hampshire Fish and Game tomorrow at Harrell Landing in Moultonborough, but there's a possibility that that may be canceled because of the inclement weather that's coming in. Tuftonboro will be taking part in a tabletop exercise in conjunction with the Carroll County Coalition of Public Health. The training will be held at our meeting room at the Central Station sometime in February. Anyone that needs to take part in that will be told when the date is determined.
And it's for what?
That is for a tabletop exercise to actually go over our pod that we have at the Tuftonboro School, as far as if there was some type of issue that we had to set that up. It's actually just training on setting up the particular pods, as far as if there was a pandemic or some type of thing that you would have to treat mass people, as far as
So
it's a health type
training.
thing, yes.
Okay.
The School of Work student, Dawson Goodrow from Kingswood, has been doing very well and fitting in well with our department. He comes Monday through Friday when available. He is there for a couple hours and is learning further as far as about the department and helps out with the department. The junior firefighter Barry Adjutant of Melvin Village is also doing well in the department. The burner motor on the furnace at Melvin Station had to be replaced at the end of the last year, and as well as the pneumatic switch. That's all been taken care of.
Was that out of 17's?
Yes, that was on 17s. Currently, we had an issue with a septic alarm at the Mirror Lake Station, and a representative from DJ Septic is they're in the process of checking that. It's believed that some of the piping may have froze on the septic pump that is out back of the station, but I don't have an answer.
And of course, that system gets very little use anymore, right? So,
The department's ambulance transported the patient to Huggins Hospital after the ambulance personnel from Stewart's Ambulance advised their ambulance was out of service due to a mechanical issue. On scene at a medical call on 1/14 of 2018.
And we have our billing system pretty well set up?
Yes. Once, there was 2 items left on the billing system. One is that Medicare item that we're waiting to have in place. And the other is that they needed a canceled check from the town as far as to be able to direct deposit the stuff. Once that is in place, then we'll be up and billing. But again, we have a year for the transports that we've done to be able to bill those. So we're really close on that. And I have contacted the Stewart's Ambulance to follow up on the malfunction, as far as they had an issue with the side door, a chain that closes the side door or allows the side door to close and stay closed broke, and the crew did not feel that the ambulance would be safe, obviously with the door open, which was a good call to not transport the rig. Due to a comment that was made about frame issues on engine 2 during a recent budget committee meeting, I am following up on a comment to try to get further information on repairing the frame on engine 2 and extending the life of the 1998 engine 2. The engine, as you know, has this year will reach its 20-year life expectancy. The engine has been in the capital improvement since 2001. I'll have better information for, everyone as soon as I talk to, people that specifically do frame replacement. Some information that I have so far is that the replacement of the frame rails in the 1998 International four-door could cost over $90,000. Is not as simple as welding the frame, as the double frame is spreading apart lengthways, not breaking. Also was informed at Lake Region Fire Apparatus that they would not fix a frame by welding or altering it in any way these days, as they would lose their liability insurance. Replacing the frame rails on the fire truck is not like replacing the frame rails on a dump truck. You can't just slide them out and slide in new ones. You have not only the rear body that needs to be removed, the water tank, the pump enclosure, all the pump tank piping, and all the wiring that goes from the front and the back. And it's not simple wiring as far as there's a ton of it. This all has to be removed before you get to the normal parts that are attached to the frame. The truck could be out of service for more than 2 months, in which time the engine would have to be rented because of this unit being out of service. So you would technically probably have more than $100,000 in a 1998 truck when you're done with this. I know a few departments that in the past they have done the frame items. They've encountered issues with it as far as parts loosening up or it not going the way that they felt. I personally don't feel that it's the way to go as far as a used truck, putting all that money into a truck, and you still have a 1998 fire truck that has other issues that can go wrong down the road and spend thousands of dollars on. We are no way in saying that the truck's not going to pass inspection this year or 5 years from now. We don't have a crystal ball to go through that. However, I wanted to answer any questions because that was brought up as a possibility that it could just be repaired at a facility, for not that much money. Also, I believe Mr. Albee had asked how much the truck would be worth in the long run, and my answer was, remember that it does have the frame issues that are out there. What that is worth to, an area that purchases trucks, I don't know yet, and I need to do further follow-up to get some reliable information before I can, truthfully speak on all of that. And I will get further information as far as frame replacement and the truck's worth before we move ahead.
I don't know that I'd spend an awful lot of time on a frame replacement research. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I was at the budget meeting because I'm a selectman representative. And not wanting to engage the person who brought this whole issue up at that point in time because it didn't seem like it made any sense. But two things that I'd say at this juncture. One is, my recollection is that you can't inspect a commercial vehicle with a welded frame. That's from years ago when I was in the trucking business and then in the car business. Secondly, it's a 20-year-old vehicle. And regardless of what people do with their personal vehicles as far as mileage and length of ownership, we're responsible for the rolling stock of this town. It's a physical asset. We got a 20-year rotation on it. It's just no different than the discussion about the code enforcement's truck. This is a $3.5 million operation that needs good, solid working stock. And that's how I look at it.
I just wanted to answer any questions as truthful as possible and to get all the answers out there. Yes, things were done very different, even 7 years ago than they are in today's day and age. Things could be done.
And lastly, not to monopolize the conversation, but the expectation that there's been no technological changes in the last 20 years in fire apparatus.
Correct.
You know,
There's been a
Nonsense.
huge safety update as far as the fire apparatus, and, you know, obviously the technical ability of the trucks has changed dramatically. And that's why I feel that looking at a new truck is the best for that. With a 20-year truck, you don't have all of those updates. In some cases, do you want to see all the electrical stuff that comes along with things, computers and stuff? Computers aren't the best in some cases, but the safety aspect of the trucks is tremendous these days.
And I'm sure that's part of what goes into the NFPA guidelines on 20-year life.
So, but as I said, I have heard some horror stories as far as the frames being replaced in the trucks. It extends the life of them, but it doesn't. It isn't always the best thing as far as when it comes down to it. Parts loosen up. It's hard to get to the different parts that you need to tighten up once you get the truck back together, and trying to get that rear axles and stuff to stay in place and things. But
Well,
we wanted to get all the answers out.
Even if you have a new frame on a 20-year-old truck, and it's put together in a workmanlike manner that doesn't have these issues you were talking about, you still have the running gear issues, engine and
Brakes.
driveline, you have the pump, the tank, all of the other fire apparatus operating issues that are there as well. So you don't have a brand new 20-year-old truck, you have a 20-year-old truck with a brand new frame. Right.
You'll be available for the budget committee?
Most definitely.
Your annualized cost for that truck isn't that.
Is there any further
Yes.
questions?
We received from Val Pate, the Safety and Security 9/11 map. Do you need a copy of it?
Aye, we have a copy of it.
You're one step ahead of us.
Well, they did provide that.
Anything else for the chief?
One other thing that I had forgot to put in, we were contacted by the Sergeant Hathcock in reference, this was during Friday night, I believe, in reference to a vehicle on Governor Wentworth Highway that was running red and blue lights, that apparently ran someone off the road at about the same time that we were out on the call, and Moltenberg was out on the call. The vehicle that was given as far as description wise, we have no one in our department that fit that description. And our personnel, it was Thursday night. Our personnel left the fire station in the ambulance, 3 personnel in the ambulance, and that's the personnel that went to the scene.